Hello and welcome to week 8 in the psychology of adulthood. And in this chapter, we're going to be looking at basically Erickson's stage of generativity. Getting a little deeper dive into that. We're just coming off of a series of stages, generally based on Erickson's stages, and that is where we define identity. So we have adolescence, emerging adulthood, and young adulthood. Now we're moving into middle adulthood, and according to Erickson, the largest, longest of all the stages in our life, and the one in which we essentially do the work that will become to represent our time on this planet. This is when we do our stuff. So that's what I'm going to be approaching in this chapter, is looking at that, the accomplishment of generativity in Erickson's theory. As a goal of life is to be generative, to generate something. Now, two of the ways that we get to establish generativity in our lives is through I'm going to use the word establishment and expertise. Now, establishment means we're going to go through, I'm actually going to use Maslow's theory here. We have Maslow's theory. At this point, psychological needs, safety needs, love and belonging are, love and belonging is sort of that in between one, but safety needs, psychological needs, I'm ready to start really investing in these other things, in love and belonging, esteem, potentially self-actualization. This is not to say that you can't have threats to these things, or that everybody's has their safety needs and psychological needs, and it doesn't mean that I can't be working on my esteem and self-actualization while still struggling to meet the lower level needs. What it means is the focus of energy, the kind of built-in next part of my life is to do the things. When we say, what do you want to do when you grow up? It's not to become a professor, it's to be a professor. The becoming professor, that's the beginning. And then I want to do the work. I want to have that career. I want to have that, what's in front of me. And then the notion of expertise, I spend some time in there because it's in generativity that we reach the degree, usually, that we reach a degree of knowledge and understanding that we can call ourselves experts. Now, I give you the example of Simone Biles within the course book, and she's still in young adulthood, and yet she'd gone well beyond expertise. It doesn't mean that expertise can't happen earlier. We'll talk about what defines expertise in just a moment. Now, what starts to happen as we are developing expertise, let's use Piaget's accommodation and assimilation. As we are going through life and working in the field, or getting to know ourselves, or raising our children, or building a life, or living in a house, and we do that over time, we are constantly exposed to opportunities to assimilate new information into our schemas of these things and accommodate existing schemas in order to match reality. So over time, through accommodation and assimilation, our knowledge base, our know-how about something becomes refined, over constantly tested with new things that come out, new experiences, new things to learn, things to unlearn that you thought were real before, until after a while, after a certain amount of time, you become really, really knowledgeable and good at that thing. So we become experienced because we've spent time. And this is probably, as a 60-year-old, now at that age when I can say, well, I've been doing this a long time. So therefore, I have had the opportunity for lots of mistakes. That's the advantage of age, is you would be hard pressed to tell me that you have made more mistakes than I have. I've had lots of time to make a lot of mistakes. Some of them I've learned from, some of them I haven't. Some of them reinforced who I was, some of them didn't. Uh, those, the various areas in which I consider myself expert in are related to things that I've been doing for a long time. So, spending time in the field, you develop a fluid kind of almost automatic behavior. Even if let's just look at an expert driver. Let's say an 18-wheel driver, a big rig truck driver. That's not me. But I've watched people drive these things. I've been in the cab driving these things, and their capacity to move that thing and make this 60-foot long box go where they want it to go is automatic. They're not, they know how far to turn. They know how to, they're going backwards, or they know how to make a corner of. I've been at an intersection where the truck has come out in front, and they'll almost jackknife, and the whole thing twists right in front of me and then goes straight. And I'm always so amazed at that. That they have that visual capacity, and it's not like they're like white knuckling their way. They're just going. They know exactly what to do. They developed an expertise in that. And it just sort of happens. And when you experience people who are expert at something, you're kind of in awe. Like, how do you know exactly what to do when you have to do something like that? It also comes along with social status. The individuals who are experts might be your boss, not necessarily, but might be your boss or the person, your mentor. That's why we want to hang around with mentors, because their experience and their expertise is something we want to learn from. It's one of the best sources of learning, is to work with a mentor. And there might be titles associated with that. So when um, when someone's called a nurse or a doctor, or the kind of doctor I am, or a psychologist, or someone's a police officer or a judge or anything like, there's a certain amount of expertise that we assume goes along with that particular title. Now, different than, let's say, um, let's say a new recruit, a person who's in their first year of being a police officer, might not be expert at a whole bunch of things, but the chief of the station might have 30 years experience. They've seen it, done it, and that individual would have expertise. There's even ranks, within the military. The ranking system is really based upon a combination of both knowledge and time served. So individuals of higher rank tend to be more expert at the things that they are doing in the military. There are also specific measures of expertise. That there'll be licensing exams that measure a minimal expertise. There's going to be testing for quality assurance and whatnot that do that kind of same, seeing where things are at in terms of your expertise, and maybe even having levels of expertise, like in electricians. You had different levels of that within academia. Within, when you get your degrees, the classic definitions of the degrees. The associate's degree means that you have enough to associate yourself with somebody who, this is what it used to mean, you have enough to associate yourself with experts. You have the basic knowledge to associate yourself, can't work on your own. Bachelor's degree, this is a very funny one. The bachelor's degree, the original word bachelor was used because you had the skill to go out on your own, but you're not good enough to charge enough money, to have enough money to get married. That's really where that came from. So you're still a bachelor. That's where the bachelor's degree come from. Then you have the master. So you have an individual who has expertise in their field. And then you have the doctor. Now, the doctor is the terminal degree. The last one that you can get is the caretaker of the knowledge, the creator of the knowledge. Not that others can't create it, but you have the associate for associations. Bachelor's, you're good, but not good enough to get married. And then you have the master's people, and then you have the people who building new knowledge, and I just kind of set the bar for the entire field. So those are all levels of expertise. So pretty cool. Now I also throw in there, in relationship with my essay on Simone Biles, is Malcolm Gladwell is an author. He wrote a book, very, very famous book called Outliers. And he examined in there, looking at the research and the people he's interviewed and whatnot, that it takes about 10,000 hours. When we look at time spent working, experiencing a particular thing, it takes about 10,000 hours for you to become expert at that. So you want to be an expert guitar player, spend 10,000 hours doing it. Want to be an expert at anything, spend 10,000 hours doing it. It's a long time, but we're holding a high bar to expert. And there's, of course, let's just throw in there, because there are gifted people that don't have to spend any time. Their bodies are made for it, or their minds are made for it. Musicians, athletes, and whatnot that didn't have to spend that much time. But if you look at those individuals, they also spend a lot of time, and they become even more expert. They become savants. They become, above. There's actually, there was actually, one time there was a proposition that was going around some academic circles of creating a level in academia above the doctor, above the PhD or doctorate or something like that, called savant. And these were individuals who would be selected by their peers as exemplars of deep, deep knowledge of the field, quite beyond um, the what a person with a doctorate would have. I've met some people that I would vote for as savants, and individuals that knew the field of biology, people that know the field of psychology in ways that I'm not going to live long enough to ever get to that, but yet they had a gift and a dedication to go beyond. It never came of anything, but I remember that dialogue going on. Now, how do we achieve, what are the areas that we would spend 10,000 hours in? There's a lot of things that we spend 10,000 hours in. Okay. I've been myself. I should have calculated it. That would have been, how long have I been alive? Oh, I wonder if I can do that. Bear with me. I'm going to tell you how many hours I've been alive. Okay. 60 times 365 times 24. I've been alive for 525,600 hours. I would consider myself an expert at me. You're all experts at you. Maybe you're still a little surprising sometimes, but you're all experts at you. Okay, so no one's going to get away with, I'm not an expert. That's not going to fly. You're an expert at you. You've been a family member for most of that. You've been a male or female for both of that. You've been something else. Maybe those two categories didn't fit, and now you're defining a new category for yourself. And what you might find is you became really expert at those first ones. So these new ones become, you're not quite expert at them yet. You still might tend toward that discomfort, of putting yourself into that discomfort. That's maybe worthy of a whole thing. You're an expert at what was and what you were taught, and now you're changing. Those kind of things. Maybe you've had a particular sport or something that you've been playing, or you've been playing an instrument, for all of this. So lots of you have expertise. So, but let's look at ways in which we can spend those 10,000 hours. Being part of a family, creating family, our friends and associates type of things, friends that we have for a really long period of time. Work, and I put in there vocation. There's work, and then there's vocation. For some people, this is the same thing. For me, teaching was my job, but it's also my vocation. It's the thing I think I'm best at. It's the thing that I like the most to do. I will do it for much longer, I hope. So we have really, then there's other people that those are different. Maybe they work and they become expert at that, but they have something else. Maybe they're also, a civic leader, or they are in the government, or they Boy Scout troop leader or something like that. They have other things that they're doing that are vocational, that are more of their vocation, hobbies and stuff like that. Creative efforts, writing, music, um, building, painting, even just fixing up, being able to do your own fix-ups in your own home repairs. Then there's spirituality, and then ultimately the idea that within these areas we start to maybe experience what Maslow talked about as self-actualization, when we happen upon our own expertise. And this is what I'm going to be asking you to think about. You just think about your own expertise and the kind of uplifting lightness, like, I'm really good at this. Whatever it is, I I'm really good at making muffins. If that's your expertise, and like, every Thanksgiving everybody's coming to your house waiting for that pumpkin muffin that you do every year, you're like, I am really good at this. That sort of peak experience is something that Maslow talks about as touching the beyond a little bit. It's something to be proud of, not to be prideful about it, but like, I worked hard for this. I pay attention to this. I like being good at it. I like sharing it. All of that stuff. Gives you a sense of that self-actualization. So, and then, and we sort of mentioned this before. This idea of when we're looking at, when I talked about socially desirable answers, it hinted, I almost went there, but I think that would have been too off topic even for me. Carl Rogers, very, very famous therapist, researcher, um, developed a theory of the self. And the self was made up of three components. And I'll tell you how that relates to expertise and socially appropriate answers, or socially desirable answers. Over here on the left, we have the incongruent self. The real self are the characteristics that are true to you. The ideal self is the characteristics that you would ideally like to be, and the self-image is what you present to the world. And a person where these three things are not completely aligned, Rogers called that person incongruent. And then the congruent person, their real self, self-image, and ideal self are largely the same thing. Now, it is perfectly normal. There's a developmental pathway in this. When little kids are born, they are congruent. Who they are, who they want to be, and what they're presenting to the world is 100% them. On the other end of the spectrum, the elderly are very much congruent. They are who they are. They'll usually say it with no qualms at all, telling you what they think, kind of that idea of that I need to put on a face kind of thing. For many, not all, don't generalize this, but for many, those people are congruent. It's through life that we go through a period of time where we're incongruent. If you have a self-improvement goal, it actually means you're incongruent. If one of my personality characteristics, I want to be a consistent workout kind of guy. I want to be able to do my workouts consistently. I think that I want that to be part of my personality. That's my ideal self. Is it my real self? No. Is it my self-image? I actually, no, I'll say, yeah, I work out on a, don't ask me for the records about how often that actually happens, but I work out. So there's actually even this sort of front that I put out there that I work out, and I do. Not what I don't match my ideal, But my true self doesn't work out that often. But I work out a little bit, making my way. So as long as we still have goals, as long as we're still working for somebody, as long as we still have a customer, whether it be a student or a person across the counter or a person that's buying your services or a client, there's always going to be a part of you that you don't share, that's professional boundaries. And one would say that that's somewhat incongruent, but it's good. There's anybody who knows customer service knows that you don't say the first thing that comes to your mind when somebody says something irritating. I have struggled with that particular skill for my entire work life, and I've gotten into lots of trouble for that. At the same time, it's incongruent, and that's expected. So if you're looking at this and saying I'm incongruent, good for you. You're supposed to be. You have goals, you have ideals that you're still trying to shoot for, you have a public facing that is necessary at times, and then you have your true self. The goal, according to when Rogers was working with this, he would help people. Let's say they had um, a public self, their self image was not their true self, and it bothered them a lot. Like, so individuals that were in the closet, the gay community in the closet, facing that public self and having that separate, can become very anxious for that individual. Then they would like to see those come together, and they have to negotiate how that particularly happens. We may also have ideals, maybe that were expectations that were put onto us that are totally unrealistic. You may have an expectation, I need to get A's in everything. Wherever that came from, it may serve as a source of unnecessary strain, because you're constantly seeking that ideal for reasons that maybe are even a mystery. It's always been what I've sought for and stuff like that. And then um, it might be under certain circumstances, you may have to learn how to be okay with not getting an A and not being perfect. Those kind of things. So it's okay to be incongruent as long as that incongruence is works in process and flexibility and self-care, and all that stuff, so they don't get out of hand. Of course they can get out of hand, and that's where Rogers came in for this. Now, in terms of socially desirable, the question might be, if I'm taking a personality test, what am I reflecting? Am I reflecting my real self, my ideal self, or my self-image? And that's always been the question of psychometricians in personality, is like, what am I getting here? I gave you this test, you answered all the questions. Am I getting is this the real you? Is it the idealized you? Or is it the you want me to see? When you see, even in anonymous testing, we can still see that kind of instance come about. So, okay, all that said, Chapter 8 discussion. I want you to share your expertise. Consider the 10,000 hour, 10-year, or 10,000 hour, 10 years of doing something rule on that. What have you done for 10,000 hours? Many things. You can share all those things that you're an expert at. And then on the assignment, this is having you go deep dive into the last theory we just talked about, which is the self from there. And I'm going to be asking you to do a presentation. That's essentially what this is. So if we were in class, I'd have you do a slideshow, you'd stand up and you would talk to the class. So I'm giving you something much easier than that. And that is, if you have the full desktop version of Microsoft PowerPoint or Apple's Keynote, this is easy smeezy. There is a function within those programs where you can record a narration over the slideshow. It's a button, click down, record narration. And it'll play your slideshow with your microphone on, and you can talk as if you're presenting. You can have notes, You can even, within PowerPoint, there's even a show me the slides in presentation mode, so you can see the slide you're working on, you can see what the next slide is going to be, and you can see the notes that you put yourself, and what's going out of the computer to the projector is only the slide. So you have all this cheat stuff in front of you. Either way, what I'm asking you to do is to produce a slideshow, just a few slides. First slide is a title page telling me what the assignment is, your name, date, all that stuff, just like a paper. And then on the second slide, you're going to describe this theory. Steal this graphic, make another one, do that. Describe, put in the graphic up, and you describe what it is. And then you're going to go into providing an example or examples of incongruence, aspects of yourself that are incongruent, and aspects of yourself that you think are congruent. Talking about those things. Now, I want you to think about when you're doing presentations. For example, when I was doing the talk on this, okay, you can see on the slide there's not much on this slide. It's just the image. There's not a lot of words. What matters is what I'm talking about when I was explaining this theory. Point to different areas. So the words that I'm saying are far more numerous than the words on the screen. I don't want you to put all your essay on the slide. If you've ever had a teacher do that, you know it's boring. And when you're sitting at my house looking at 28 of these, it's very boring. Don't do that. What I want you to do is create simple slides with graphic images or whatever, simple slides with an outline of what you're talking about, and then you're talking about what this is. Now, I add these to my classes, even my online classes, because I think public speaking is important. I think it's important for you to be able to stand up in front of people and say what you want to say it clearly and with confidence. This is actually a very, very low risk practice opportunity for you to do that. You're in your home alone. If you're going along and you screw it up, delete it. I'll never know. Isn't that great? It's not like you make a mistake in public speaking and everybody heard it. If you make a mistake, delete it and then just redo the assignment. And so you don't want to talk a lot, because if you have to redo it, you're going to have to redo it. I have more often than, as you can probably tell with the way I'm talking right now, I don't edit these videos, but there are times that I've started a video that I've done like this, and for my classes, and 3 or 4 times I'll start talking and then I'm just confusing myself and I have to stop and restart. And then once I get going, enough along the way, my brain sort of clicks into presentation mode and I'm able to do this. I want you to be able to have a little bit of an experience with that. So you create the slideshow in PowerPoint, Keynote, use the tools within that product to create a narration that when I press play, it plays. That you're not converting this to a PDF. You're sending them directly to me as a PowerPoint file or a Keynote file. If you are going to be using another product like Google Slides, it can be done. People have done it and they've sent me links and it's worked, but I don't know how they did it. The same with Canva. People have done some really neat animations and whatnot. I don't know how to do it myself. Find the tool that you're best at, the one you're expert at, and use that tool to develop your skill at public speaking by recording a narration over a simple set of slides. That's it. That's what the assignment is. So a little bit different in terms of the workload, and you're learning a skill that's unrelated specifically to adult development, but is one that I think is important for people graduating from college to have. We should all be, well, let's say we should all have had the experience, the opportunity to develop public speaking skills. So with that, I'll leave you with that assignment, the one discussion. Have a great week. I'll see you online and take care.